Here we are on the Isle of Wight, and what we're going to do today is, rather than take the usual route, say route 22 or 23 on the cycle tracks, what I want to start doing is exploring and seeing which routes particularly you can take an e-bike, because I can't really carry it over the stiles because unless I take the battery off and the panniers, which kind of is a real slog really. So I want to start exploring around Gurnard and Thorness to begin with, to try to find ones that have got gates rather than actual stiles that I have to lift the e-bike over. And as we'll see, Little Thorness and Whippant's Farm are by far the best places. Now, I generally don't like cycling on roads. I think I've made that point before actually. However, when I do or have to do, then I will take the quietest residential roads as possible. And you'll see very little traffic along here. I'm heading down towards Gurnard from Northwood. Whilst exploring the island, I found many places I never even knew existed. So this is something called Ark Park. It's rather expensive. It's like £200 per night to live like our ancestors did in hovels from centuries ago. However, I suppose it's quite fun. It's quite funky. I think each one does actually have a hot tub as well, but it's still quite expensive for what it is. Part of finding these tracks is to try to avoid the main road between Cowes and Thorness Bay, simply because I just really don't like it. I don't think it's a particularly safe road. It's undulating, it's up and down, there's blind bends, and cars do come sometimes very close to you when they're trying to overtake you on double unbroken lines. So I'm going to try and find this track. Here's one right here. Now this heads towards Gurnard, and initially I thought, great stuff, I can get across it, get up it. There's no fence, there's no stile. However, as I get towards the end of it later, you'll see that there is a gate, and it's quite awkward to get through. I do like to stop though and look at the beautiful countryside. It's so peaceful and it's so quiet, and there's so very few people around on these little lanes. We're into May now, so some of the foliage is quite tough. I would imagine that give it another month or so and this will be completely overgrown, I would imagine. So I finally get here, and there's these gates in the way, so it's a bit tricky to get through. In fact, I just found it easy to go back the same way. You can see it here on the map on the left hand side. By the way, for the what three words, it is lunges, scour, galloping. Now you can head south from there and you get through the farm without a stile, but from east to west or west to east you can't. Now I'm heading up to Whippant's Farm and through to Thorness Bay. Hallelujah, so this is a great track. There is a slight gate coming up shortly, but you can squeeze past it to get to the beach. Now I'm coming up to the farm gates, and this goes to a campsite shortly through here, and then it's down to the beach. This is excellent. This is finally a decent route to avoid that main road towards Thorness Bay from Gurnard. This is a completely doable route on the e-bike. Obviously the Isle of Wight is an island, so it's surrounded by sea, and there's so many beaches you can explore. Everyone's got their own personal favourite for whatever reason, and for me it's Thorness Bay. Perhaps because when I first came here I used to use it as a bay to anchor on my boat, and also because I brought my boat up onto the beach quite a few times. One of the great things about exploring on the e-bike, especially being on your own, is that you often don't actually bump into anybody, so I've not met anybody along these tracks, so it's just so peaceful and private. This is Whippant's Farm campsite. I actually had no idea it existed. In fact, it's the second campsite I've passed that I didn't know existed at all. And we're going to see the views that you get waking up from your tent each morning shortly down near the beach. Again, it's passable. You can bring traffic, you bring cars down here rather, but obviously with the permission of the farmer. And Thorness Bay, my favourite bay on the entire island. Now it's really quite large, there's plenty of room. A lot of people tend to stay near the car park, which is a little bit further to my left up here. However, if you go for a bit of a hike, you can find a patch that is completely bereft of anybody. Now, it is really broad. It goes from Gurnard all the way through to Newtown Creek, but there are certain muddy parts, really quite tricky. And if the tide's coming in, you could be sealed off. So probably best to stay around where most people are, unless you've got a decent OS map and you know where you have got reasonably local knowledge. I found it quite tricky actually cycling over here, certainly the little rocks, but once we get onto the softer sand it's even much more difficult. Now I should have let some air out of the tyres really, but I was just being a bit lazy. I couldn't be bothered then re-inflating them after a few hundred metres. Some debris here managed to get into my wheel somehow. I think it was just as I was riding over it. Here's an interesting factoid about flotsam and jetsam. It's neither flotsam nor jetsam because it was actually natural. And then on to Thorness Bay. This is the caravan park. It does get really busy, especially around July and August. So right now it's fairly quiet. And these hills are really easy on the e-bike. I just turn it up a notch and I go straight up. Here's another little campsite right at the top end of Thorness Bay. I don't think this is attached to Thorness Bay because the main campsite is just a little bit further down from here. And this is part of the coastal route that goes all the way right around the island. Now there's lots of stiles around it, so it's not that convenient for an e-bike, but certainly if you've got something lighter, just a regular bicycle, it is doable to completely round the island in 60 miles. As I stated, I'm not a fan of this road at all, especially with these double unbroken lines here with traffic trying to overtake you. However, I'm going to take a quick left here, and this is another lane, and this is completely doable by bicycle or by e-bike. It's called Little Thorness, and it's another way to get down to Thorness Bay. You can see that it's parallel to the previous one from Whippens. Again, I didn't know this place existed. What a pretty little place. However, there's a little bit of a thing in the way, so we have a stile here. Now, it was actually possible to get over it, but I thought to explore further to see if there's any way through, and there is. There's further up the path here. This is actually a designated path on the OS map. However, it's quite tricky to get through the hedge here at the end. Nevertheless, as I'm just doing a reconnaissance really, I decided to go back the same way I came. Now under the UK regulations, auto assist on these e-bikes can only take you up to 15 miles an hour. If you wish to go faster, you have to pedal faster or go down a steep hill like this. The fastest I generally do is up to about 30, I think very max is 32 miles per hour. Now, until you've experienced an e-bike, it's difficult to convey to others just quite how powerful it feels. So with me overtaking, this is a professional athlete by the looks of it, and yet I just overtook going up a hill as easy as. Now back towards Pallant's Lane and on my way home via Gurnard though. How many times I've been past here on my motorbike and never noticed these little cottages. What a beautiful little place. And now coming into Gurnard. I love this tiny little bay, and I'm really kind of looking forward to one of these little boats coming up for sale at one point, because the land comes with the boat, so even though many of the boats have actually sank, you can actually, if you buy it, you buy the land with it. These are the private little beach huts that front onto the actual beach at Gurnard. You'll see the front shortly. A quick swim at Gurnard Beach and then on my way home.